Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and the PlayStation 1 is most widely known for two types of games that we saw come out on the PlayStation 1. The first grouping would be the standout AAA titles that came out on the PlayStation 1. Games like your Crash Bandicoot series, the Tomba series, the Ridge Racer, Gran Turismo. A lot of those standout AAA games and AAA titles are definitely where a lot of people, when they gravitate towards the PlayStation 1, they're usually looking for those types of games. PlayStation 1 is also known for the plethora of amazing RPGs that came out for the system, including the Lunar series, the Arc the Lad series. You've got Xenogears, Tales of Destiny, the list goes on and on. And so it's clear that, there are a large number of quality titles that you can get on the platform, but there is a genre of games that are available on the PlayStation 1 that I don't think gets highlighted enough, and that's the action slash adventure slash beat 'em up genre of games that came out on the PlayStation 1. And there are people who are collecting for the console. There are people who are collecting original PlayStation 1 hardware, even in 2025. And if you find yourself in that category, I've got 5 games plus a bonus that I think you may want to look into adding into your collection for the PlayStation 1. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of go over these games real quick. And then, like I said, you can definitely do your due diligence. Take some time and see if these are games that you might be interested in, or games that you may want to take advantage of. The first game in the grouping is going to be Wu-Tang Shaolin Style. Now, if you're a fan of games like Def Jam Fight for New York or Def Jam Vendetta, then you are going to like Shaolin Style. Now, this game is not as dynamic as those first two games in terms of the the amount of characters you can choose from. Obviously, Def Jam Fight for New York is probably going to have the largest character roster, just because it's including rappers from a bunch of different labels. But this game, Wu-Tang Shaolin Style, is definitely a great action game. It's definitely one that's got some unique fighting in it. Wu-Tang Shaolin Style plays a lot more like a ringless wrestling game. So if you were a fan of games like Warzone, the wrestling game, or pretty much almost any wrestling game that came out during the 5th generation, you're going to like Wu-Tang because it does include like some wrestling, some grappling, but also like your standard punching and kicking in, some pretty cool New York City environments. You're usually going to be in a back alley somewhere in New York City. And the soundtrack on this game is obviously amazing if you like either old school rap or if you're a fan of Wu-Tang, which there are millions of Wu-Tang fans out there. So again, if you're a fan of games like Def Jam Fight for New York or Def Jam Vendetta, Wu-Tang Shaolin Style is definitely going to be a game you want to check out, because this is kind of where a lot of that originated. I feel like a lot of what we saw in the Def Jam games in the Gen 6 era definitely came out of Wu-Tang Shaolin Style. So I definitely recommend this one. Here's another one that I think you'll definitely want to check out. So you have Gekido. So if you've ever played games like Fighting Force on the N64 or PlayStation 1, Gekido kind of plays a bit like those games. Now, you are dealing with Gen 5 graphics on the PlayStation, on the original PlayStation. So the graphics aren't going to be the most amazing, but this is a pretty fun beat 'em up game. It's a 3D beat 'em up game for the PlayStation 1 that I think is worth checking out. We didn't get a lot of these types of beat 'em up games during the 5th generation, especially on the PlayStation, but I think Gekido was definitely a solid entry for the genre. There is a Gekido game, I believe, that came out for the GBA, if I'm not mistaken, and that one plays more like a 2D side-scrolling beat 'em up. This one is a little bit different, but it's definitely well worth it. You kind of see where the 6th generation got the inspiration for games like Urban Reign and Final Fight Streetwise, because we definitely saw more 3D beat 'em ups on the 6th gen on like the PlayStation 2. But on the original PlayStation, Gekido was definitely one of those games that just had some interesting environments, some interesting action and gameplay. I definitely recommend you checking this one out if you're into beat 'em ups. This is one to look out for. Speaking of beat 'em ups, you have the Jackie Chan Stuntmaster game. Now this game is a little bit different from like your standard beat 'em up like a Gekido, because Jackie Chan Stuntmaster plays a little bit more like an action adventure beat 'em up, because there's platforming elements to it. You have to engage with your background environments a lot. You know, there's a lot of climbing, there's a lot of running. I mean, it's a lot of the typical things that you would see Jackie Chan do in his movies. Um, the beat 'em up aspect of it is okay. The fighting in this game is okay, and the platforming in this game is okay. This is not the like best beat 'em up of all time. Like, it's not, you know, there's definitely other beat 'em ups that you'll have more fun with than Jackie Chan Stuntmaster. Also, I think the graphics are a bit interesting because they don't try to, like, while yes, they want to make it clear that you're playing as Jackie Chan, they kind of have like this cartoon effect to some of the characters and in some of the graphics. But I do like the environments. I do like the move sets and that you can do different moves in the game. I think the most standout thing about Jackie Chan Stuntmaster, though, is going to be the voice acting. The fact that they actually used Jackie Chan's voice in this game, I think, is pretty cool, all throughout the game. And so this is just a very interesting one. I don't know if there are many Jackie Chan video games out there, but for there to be like this action adventure beat 'em up game available on the PlayStation, I think that this is pretty cool. So this is one that I would definitely recommend looking into. If you are a fan of the Contra series, then you will definitely want to take a look at the Contra Adventure. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they actually came out with a Sega Saturn version of this game. If I'm wrong, you guys can let me know down in the comments. That version is probably a lot more expensive than the PlayStation 1 version. But the PlayStation 1 version, I think, is pretty cool. When we think about like Contra games, this one tends to get like a little lost in the sauce. Obviously, we think about the original Contra games on the NES. Alien Wars is probably the most common. When you get to PlayStation 2, you have Contra Shattered Dimensions, I think, or Shattered Soldier. No, Shattered Soldier, I think is what it's called. You also have Neo Contra on the PlayStation 2. I don't know if we got any Contra games, like any original Contra games on the PlayStation 3 or, well, I know we didn't get any on PlayStation 3. I think there was a return to Contra on the PlayStation 4 in Rogue Squadron, I think, and then they're supposed to be coming out with another one. I'm not sure. But I know that this one kind of gets lost in the sauce, but this is actually a pretty decent version of Contra. It kind of incorporates this like 2.5D style to the game here, and you obviously get different vantage points as you're playing through the game. I mean, it's standard Contra. You got a bunch of different guns. You're just blasting your way through, destroying aliens. And I think this is a fun entry, especially on the PlayStation 1, where you didn't see a lot of run and gun shooters like that on the PlayStation. So this is definitely an interesting entry, one that I would recommend you even take a peek at. It's definitely cool. All right, so we got our fifth entry here, and this is one that a lot of people don't know about, but Rising Zan. So first of all, I just love the cover art of Rising Zan. I know it's very simple, but just something about that cover art is amazing to me. I do love this game. It is an age tech game. And if you're a fan of games like Samurai Western on the PlayStation 2, you'll like, to me, when I play Samurai Western, I feel like it got its inspiration from Rising Zan, because you are like this cowboy samurai, where you're able to obviously wield a sword, but you're also able to wield a gun in this game. It's kind of like almost like a little bit of an open world, for as open as worlds could be on the 5th generation. Adventure game, where you've got the hacking and slashing elements along with the shooting elements with it as well. I think this one gets a little bloody. It gets a little gory for that era. But this is actually really cool. Not the best graphics, to be quite honest with you. Not the best graphics, but I think considering the technology and the time, this is just a very interesting and solid entry. I think you'll have fun with this one. If you like hack and slashers, if you like games, like I said, if you're a fan of like games like Samurai Western or even Blood Will Tell, You'll like what Rising Zan has to offer for this generation of games, and it's definitely one that I recommend checking out. It's not one that you hear a lot of people talk about, but it's definitely worth looking into. All right, and I just got a bonus one. Those are the five, but I do have a bonus game that I'll talk about, and I just made this game a bonus because I talk about this game all the time, and that is Silent Bomber. If you've never heard of this game, you have to check it out for the PlayStation. This is Bomberman meets Contra meets Metal Gear Solid. This is probably more like Bomberman meets Metal Gear Solid, in my opinion. Just the this is a linear game for sure, but it has an openness to it that kind of makes it feel a little bit open world, especially in some parts where the levels get really broad. You get very cool weapons. Your main weapons are obviously bombs, but the different variations of bombs that you get, how many bombs you can set at one time. Some are remote, some are timed. You've got napalm, just a lot of things you could do in this game. I think the gameplay on this is top tier, especially for the PlayStation. Definitely one worth checking out. So those are the 5 action adventure games that I recommend for the PlayStation 1. You may have heard of all of these games. You may have heard of none of these games. But if any of these are new to you, let me know down in the comments. And if I missed any other amazing action adventure games, let me know. I'll check those out myself. But that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.